Hello, I'm Greg Hartjes, Superintendent for the Appleton Area School District. Thank you for joining me for this fourth video in our series of informational videos pertaining to our referendum that's scheduled for November 8th. Today's video is going to focus on the first of two questions taxpayers will be asked on November 8th. And this first one is a capital referendum question. And what that means is we're asking the community to support us spending $129.8 million on several capital projects. The picture that you're looking at here is of East High School. This is an addition we would like to put on at East High School, and we'll add 11 classrooms to the Schaefer Street side, which is the west side of East High School. But that's just the picture that I wanted you to see. And now let me start with the first project. So again, there's 4 projects that encompass this first capital project question. And this first one is to build a new elementary school to relieve overcrowding in the northeast part of our district. And if you look at the map that is shown here, in a yellow rectangle is the spot where, roughly the spot where we would look to build that new elementary school. It would have a student capacity of 600 students. It would address enrollment growth that we're projecting and that's already occurring in this area, and also will relieve overcrowding at Huntley Elementary School. So the projected cost is $36 million, and there's an annual operating cost of $900,000. So the operating costs are for utilities, maintenance, and cleaning, along with some staffing. We would need a principal for the school, a secretary, school counselor, LMC specialist, and building engineer. And then the rest of the staff would come over based on the number of students that transfer here from one of our other elementary schools. And so this would be built on district-owned property. And let me show you a little bit clearer picture of where that property is. So as you look here, this is where North High School is located. And over on Lightning Drive, we own the farm that basically makes a T here. And it's just over 40 acres. This is the Appleton Fire Station, and down here, this triangle portion is going to be a city park named after Mitch Lundgaard, the fallen firefighter. So this is property that we've owned for 22 years. We would look to build the elementary school up here in this location so that we leave space for if there ever needs to be a middle school added to this property. And so there is enough space here for 2 schools if eventually that's what the need is. So the second project area is to add STEM and middle school capacity at our middle schools. And so what we're looking at is bringing 6th grade into our middle schools. And this is something that was brought up by the Future Needs Advisory Committee. It was suggested, and it was actually something that we talked about as a district many, many years ago. So when North High School was built and 9th graders were moved out of our junior highs, prior to that time, we had junior highs with 7th, 8th, and 9th graders. We moved the 9th graders into the high schools at that time in 1995. And then the idea was we would bring 6th graders behind them, but it never happened. In the 2005 referendum, 2014 referendum, we just simply weren't able to include those as the highest priorities in those project areas. But now we do feel it is a high priority. And the idea came up through the Future Needs Advisory Committee because we were looking at what to do with our 16 elementary schools that many are overcrowded at this time, and many of them need updates. And so the idea was we move 6th graders to the middle school, it will create space at each of our elementary schools. So for example, Highland School has 3 6th grade classrooms, and so when 6th graders are moved out, that would create 3 classrooms that could be used, one of which for a STEM space. And so we want to be able to put STEM spaces into all of our elementary schools. I'll talk about that in the next slide. But this idea of moving 6th graders to the middle school has been thought about for a long time because we're very unique in Appleton in that we have 6th graders in our elementary schools with kindergarten and 1st graders. Usually you have kindergarten through 5th grade and then 6th through 8th. And that's generally how curriculum comes to us. And so having 6th graders in the elementary school is very unique to Appleton. We want to move 6th graders in the middle school for a couple of reasons. One is academically, socially, and emotionally, 6th graders fit better with 7th and 8th graders. We have struggled in just a 2-year time frame when students come in as 7th graders and then they leave after 8th grade. it's hard for our staff members to develop relationships with students and families. So they're really excited about the possibility of having 3 years with a student and a family to develop stronger relationships. We also know that academically and socially, emotionally, sixth graders are more like seventh and eighth graders than they are like a kindergarten or first grader. So anyway, those are the reasons that we're looking at it. Makes a lot of sense for us from just a functional facility standpoint, but also we do feel it's best for sixth graders. The projected cost would be $47 million, and this would mean that we have some fairly large projects. So we would be adding on to Madison, Wilson, and Kaleidoscope with additions and then also significant renovations to update them. Those are some of our oldest schools. You saw in my first video where Wilson and Kaleidoscope are almost 100 years old, and Madison is just under 70 years old. So that's where we'd have 3 large projects. Einstein would also get an addition. It doesn't need as much updating because that school was built in the late 60s. So 3 large projects, but together the 4 would add up to $47 million. And then operating costs of $680,000. Again, that's for utilities and for cleaning and for maintenance. And there's a little bit of staffing in there because when sixth graders come to the middle school, they have access to some co-curriculars and then elective classrooms like family consumer science. They have more robust tech ed, art, and physical education at the middle school. So there's a little bit of staffing increase that would be needed. This is just a picture of what Wilson would look like if we were to put an addition on. And this is the front of Wilson, so it's the east side facing and to the south. The third project area would be to complete a variety of projects at each of our elementary schools. So we'd start by creating a STEM space. So STEM is an acronym for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Math. And that's simply what we're calling these spaces because a lot of people understand that terminology, but really we would look beyond those 4 areas. We certainly believe that within the problem-solving, project-based curriculum that we would have in these STEM areas, students will be integrating reading and writing and probably some artistic inspiration perhaps for problem solving. So we're calling them STEM spaces, but know that they'll function in a lot of different ways just around problem solving. We want to improve security at one of our elementary schools specifically. We want to modernize any available space that we can within our older elementary schools, and the projected cost would be $13 million. This is just a picture of what a STEM space may look like. And so you can see that this is a functional room. It's not a large room. We're looking at rooms that are between 800 and 1,000 square feet at each of our 16 elementary schools. And then we would look at some project areas such as coding, robotics, manufacturing, circuitry, simple machines, and 3D printing. These are the experiences we want all of our elementary students to be able to have. Our project area 4 is to build additions and complete renovations at our 3 high schools. And so our high schools have a lot of needs, but we did an analysis of all of these needs and we've prioritized 2 or 3 projects at each school. So at East High School, the big project is adding on those 11 classrooms that I just talked about, but also a small project would be to renovate and make a small addition to their fitness center. At North High School, we want to build 3 new science classrooms in an area that is currently underutilized. And then we want to renovate some of their other science rooms. We want to renovate their tech center, and we want to build a new fitness center and use the old fitness center, which is on the 2nd floor, and turn that into some large functional classrooms. And then at West High School, we're going to build an atrium that functions as a cafeteria during the day, an additional cafeteria for West. And then it would have 2 large classrooms, very multifunctional, flexible classrooms that they could use. And then also the second project that we want to do at West High School is to build, it's an indoor facility that would be separate from the main school and would function for physical education and for extracurricular activities. And West is very challenged, as you can imagine. It's built on 15 acres, just under 15 acres actually, whereas East and North have over 40 acres. And so this would be a space that would be really functional for West High School. When we put all 4 of these projects together, the cost is $129.8 million. And in the spring of this year, we sent out a survey to 44,000 households, and we asked each of these 4 questions separately because we wanted to know if there was any of these areas that the community couldn't support on a referendum. We weren't going to include them. But what you see with the yes votes on the right-hand side there is they were all very well received. And so the questions asked for responses of either yes, no, or undecided. And so having yes votes of over 63% are very positive. This is what the question will actually look like on the November 8th ballot. And it's something that we have to work with an attorney on. So we worked with an attorney to draft the language. It then was approved by our Board of Education and then sent to the Department of Public Instruction here in Wisconsin for approval. And so it's obviously very complicated. We have to put a lot of information. That's why I'm including it now so that when you get to the polls on that day, you don't have to read the question through. Hopefully you have enough information ahead of time to make your decision. So that is what I wanted to share with you today. Please look for another video coming out shortly. Thank you.